So for our van, the stock suspension was trash, so we ended up going with the Van Compass suspension. We ended up doing the Falcon rally struts from Van Compass in the front. In the rear, we ended up doing the Opti-Rate leaf springs and the Falcon 3.3 adjustable shocks in the rear. You can watch how we installed the rally struts here. Today we're going to be showing you how we installed our Van Compass Opti-Rate rear leaf spring. We went with this because with more weight in the build out of the van, the rear is starting to sag. So we really want to upgrade our load capacity by having the larger spring pack. The leaf springs also have adjustable preload spacers to increase your ride height and get you back to a factory ride. In the rear, we also installed the Falcon 3.3 adjustable rear shocks from Van Compass. We like this because it's adjustable. You got the 3 different settings for on-road, highway, off-road, and around town. Alright, first things first is we removed the factory shocks on the rear. You got a 21mm bolt at the top, and down at the bottom it's an 18mm bolt and nut. So once we get this removed, then we remove the sway bar link and there's a couple wires that are attached to the rear differential with the 10mm bolt. Voila. 19mm socket. We're gonna remove the U-bolt, and we got a jack stand underneath to hold it. This is the front because it's got this extra, what they call military bend, and then in the rear we're going to remove this and put that on the new one. These are both 18mm. So we want to get this shackle perpendicular to the curve of this. And we're just going to tighten it up by hand, and then we're going to torque it to 100 foot-pounds. Now she's ready to go back in. Sucker, it's heavy. Here we go. We're gonna put the front bolt back in, bolt and nut, and only hand tighten them for now. So now we got the front bolt in, just hand tightened. We got our stub that's on the bottom of the spring pack mounted in its hole. Now we just need to attach the rear bolt, and then we'll start putting everything back together. For now, we're just hand tightening everything, not too tight, and then we'll go through and torque everything down to the specs once we put the tires back on and lower the vehicle back down. We're gonna go ahead and put our new U-bolts back on and reuse the same mounting plate that was on the old. So we'll set that up there. Our U-joints, U-bolts. I'm gonna put some anti-seize on the bottom. Four new bolts that came with the springs. It allows the bolts not to seize up because it's metal on metal and it's new. If you ever have to remove these, it just makes it easier. So we're just gonna loosely tighten these up, if that's a thing. We're gonna torque everything down once we lower the van back down. On the old springs, we had this clip here that the brake line mounted in. Removing this, we'll no longer have use for this. So they gave us kind of like this heavy duty split loom that's gonna go on the brake line and allow it not to cut through. And it's just gonna be sitting basically on that leaf spring. I'm gonna push this thing up a little bit. Basically the amount that this can just sit here freely. And then it opens up like that. You just twist it, starting on one end, and work it down. Just like so. We got the springs fully installed. We'll retorque everything once we lower the van. Right now we're gonna move on to installing our new Falcon shocks. Driver, rear. Got this washer here that goes between the shock and the body. If you want to install the top, this is your 21 millimeter. Eventually, we're gonna order the either Van Compass Baja brackets for the rear shock, or we'll do the Agile off-road. But for now, we're just mounting this up and we can order that later and put it on. We're gonna put this little 10 millimeter back on the rear differential. So we just torqued that to 100 foot-pounds. That's a 21 millimeter. Now we're gonna do the rear, which is, or the lower, which is 60, and that's an 18 millimeter. So last thing we gotta do on this side is put our tire back on so we can lower it all back down, reattach the sway bar link, and then torque everything down. And then we'll go over to the other side, do this whole thing over there. Take it for a test drive. About to get back on the road. So we'll change this back to setting number 2.
We are on the way to get an alignment for this bad boy. And So we'll see how far we were off as far as Billy's measurements, because I feel like he was pretty close, and driving around town, it seems like it's pretty good. It's a pretty close alignment, but it's recommended by Van Compass to get it aligned after you install it if you do a DIY install. So we're gonna go do that now, and hopefully they'll tell us how far off we were. So it turns out we really weren't that bad, so that's good to know. Yay, Billy.
You have one job. That's to record.